My name is Cody Wilson. I'm with Owens Corning. This is Paul Springer. He is with AeroBarrier. We're going to talk a little bit about air sealing and how to simplify this process. Kind of what we're going to really get into is what we've done up until this point of air sealing, that journey it's been taking to get there to where we've gone. Show you some examples of some stuff that we've done that has been successful. But at the end of the day, we want to show you how we with this technology, with AeroBarrier, how you can take everything that we've done up to this point and completely simplify the process. We have partnered with AeroBarrier because we look at this, we make a great insulation product. We got the highest R value per inch by cost that there is in the market. The problem is that we didn't have a simplified way to air seal the house with the R values that we provide in the walls. So when we saw this technology, the first thing we said, well, it can't be really that simple, right? And I'm like, okay, well, I put my HERS-Rater hat on because I was one for 15 years, and they said, there's got to be something here. It can't be that easy, and it is. And so we're going to kind of show you what we've done. Like I said, it's like this evolution, and then Paul's going to come in and show you how to make it very, very easy from this point on. Raise of hands. Anybody living in a state where the energy codes are going backwards? No, right? The building departments, how about the building departments? Are they going backwards? No. The problem is that the energy codes are moving forward. And when we talk about the energy codes, and air sealing is the foundation of the performance of the house, right? You can doesn't matter what type of insulation you're putting in your walls and everything, if you have unwanted air coming into that house, it doesn't really matter what you're doing to the walls and to the windows, right? I mean, you've got to have a tighter home. You don't want Mother Nature running in and out of the home. So once you get the air sealing down, then your windows, your HVAC, your insulation, the orientation, all these things come into play when you're talking about the overall performance of the house. And that's the part that we try to look at. It's more of a system, but you've got to start with the foundation, and the air sealing is the foundation of getting to where you want to go. But there's also many benefits when it comes to air sealing. I mean, if you're a home builder in here, the homeowners don't understand what an air change per hour is, right? But they do understand indoor air quality. They understand less maintenance on the home, less dusting, less bugs, all the things that are important to their everyday life. And that's what the air sealing also does. It's not just about the energy piece of it. It's about what's the definition of comfort in the home. And if you look at all these things, we're talking about heating and cooling. If you're in a hot, humid climate, moisture management, and all the other things that I just mentioned about, indoor air quality, bugs, smell. If you're in multifamily or you're sharing a common wall, you've got the smell, not just outside air, but if you're in Colorado, you don't want to be sitting next to somebody that is smoking something or whatever it may be, right? So, or you don't want to go with anybody you're living next to a smoker. So smell is very important in multifamily and duplexes, right? So air sealing just helps in all these other areas. The most common question I get is can you make a house too tight? Everybody, I guess I'm going yes, I'm saying no. The motto is if you make it tight, ventilate it right. So your ventilation strategy is key. If you don't have the right ventilation strategy when you're making a tight house, then yes, you can make it too tight. But you have to make sure you have the right ventilation strategy, and that really depends on the climate zone that you work in. So all these things come into play, but if you don't have the right ventilation strategy, and we're not going to go too deep into that, but we do say that you have to make sure you are making sure that you're constantly conditioning that air and making sure it's healthy to be living in. This is what we normally see in the house, and I get people calling me all the time saying, I got an uncomfortable room, I need to move my thermostat. No, what we need to do is find out what's going on. And so this is what they see, and this is what I see. This is air, this is thermal. These are all different things that are going behind the wall that if you don't stop that air from coming in, you're going to have an uncomfortable house. I just talked to a lady last week that said, I got this room, it's really uncomfortable. It's a LEED certified home. I said, okay. She goes, well, I want to move my thermostat because it's way over here and this bedroom's over here. I said, well, what's the temperature difference between the room? 4 degrees. I said, well, it's not your thermostat. I said, you got air leaking in that house somewhat. I said, so that's why it's so important when we talk about air management. So air sealing is important, but we've been struggling with this, right? So we've been getting really important on the air sealing strategy and how to air seal the houses. We've gone from 7 to 5 to 3. So there's different ways of doing it, but the problem that we have is we got 15 different trades. I always say, you know, the old saying, it takes a village to raise a child. Well, it takes a village to air seal a house because everybody's responsible. You've got people puncturing holes this big for a wire this big, right? I mean, there's so many things that are going on. So you got trades, you got labor. Labor is a big issue. So all these different things that are going on. And the problem is there's no predicted results. There's not a solution out there up until now that you can go to every single one of these booths that have an air sealing solution and say, can you guarantee I will pass every single time? And none of them can say yes. And that's the really cool thing about this. Even everything that I'm going to show you here today, where I'm out of Texas, and I've got over 4,000 homes that are averaging 2 air changes per hour, okay? And the thing is that it's still not consistent. I mean, it's taking, the biggest part about air sealing is you need to take the human error element out of the equation as much as possible. Your solution is only as good as your installer, no matter what the product is. And so that's the hard part. So one of the things that we've done when we first got to the air change hour requirements, well, we talked to our buddies out in Canada who have to get to less than 2 air changes per hour. And I said, okay, well, what are you guys doing out there that we could do here to make it simple? So what we've done is we looked at it at a different approach. You've got all these joints in here, right, that are walking around inside the house, and you've got an insulation contractor walking around with can foam, and he's running around on piecework trying to seal every single crevice of the house. Well, if I stop all the leaks from the outside, now I've prevented half of this thing's, all the penetrations from the inside, so if something does get missed, then I'm actually addressing it from the outside. So what we did is we came out with a very simple gasket that looks very similar to seal. It's a little bit more flexible and is designed to pressurize, or it's designed to seal with nail pressure rather than with, you know, the house pressure. And so all we've done is we came out and we put our normal sealer, then we take this other gasket, and all we're doing is just picture framing the outside of the house. And then you put your cladding on the house, and now you've stopped the air from the outside. The biggest leakage point is where? Rim and band joists, right? And I see builders that are spending $700 to $1,000 just at the rim and band joist with spray foam. We went out there and did this for about $60, and they got the same result. So that's the thing, is so we said, okay, well, rather just at the rim and band joist, why can't we do this around the entire perimeter of the house? And that's what we did. The biggest obstacle in your market is getting the framers to install it, right? But once they saw how simplified it was, they did great, and there was no issue with it. So it really doesn't matter the cladding. You're just stopping the air from the outside, like you saw in that previous thing. And then, what 90% of you guys are doing now is trying to apply some type of gasket at the top plate, right? And making sure the drywallers aren't ripping it off, right? We're using that same gasket at the top plate, but it all comes down to application, right? So we'll use a framing gasket, liquid applied gaskets. You've got, and the problem is that half of the houses, they're trying to put something at the top plate, and then they see 3 common areas. You have ceiling height changes. The back end of the ceiling height change, there's no blocking for even to put a gasket on there. So 30% of the house, if you got a ceiling height change in 30% of the houses, you just failed your blower door test because you don't have gasket in 30% of the top plate. You've got vaulted ceilings where they don't even put a top plate at the vaulted ceiling and there's no gasket to put something there. Common garage walls, another big one. They always just put the gasket at the top plate, but they don't picture frame that common garage wall, and you still got air coming at the bottom of that garage going into your house. And these are just common areas that we see with air sealing, that it's great if you do this and you see these videos. We made these videos in English and Spanish. We have handouts. We've done all these things because the big thing we see out there is labor. I'll train a crew, and then next week I'll have a completely different crew out there. So how do you make it as transparent as possible? Well, they all have phones, that we do know. So if we can put these on their phones, then they have some type of reference point. Or we train them before we go out into the field. That's some of the things that we do. This all works. It's great. I mean, like I said, I've got 1,600 a home a year builder averaging 2 air changes per hour doing what you're seeing right here. I've got a builder that he's built small houses right around 6,000 square feet. And, you know, he's building $2, $3 million homes, very complex homes. This still works. But the problem with this is Is this simple? No. It does work. I mean, and we've worked really hard to try to simplify this as much as possible, but the problem is it doesn't really simplify the whole process. Most of the builders and most of the contractors, they want something that's really, truly turnkey solution, right? Something that one contractor has to be responsible for everything, and it's usually the installation contractor. If the house fails, who do they call? They call the installation contractor. So what Paul's going to talk to you is everything that we showed here. This is the struggle we've gone through over the last 3 to 5 years, right? Well, Paul's going to show the easy button and really, truly a more simple way to do this moving forward.
Thank you. So like Cody said, as consumer expectations change, as our architecture gets more complicated, air sealing also gets much more complicated. That's why we think AeroBarrier is it's a game-changing solution. AeroBarrier is a single-step process that typically takes about half a day to seal a building envelope to any level of tightness you're looking for. Whether you're just trying to hit code at 3 ACH 50, or you want to take it to 0.2 ACH 50, we can do that with our system. The beauty of our system is because we use a blower door in our system, we can give you verified results, and we know the leakage of your building in real time. So if you just want to hit 3, right, we can dial in that performance for you. No wasted time, no wasted labor, no wasted material, and we'll verify that house that it has hit 3 air changes per hour for you. So real quick, let's talk about how it works. It typically takes about half a day for us to do our process. An hour of that is prep. Any designed openings in the space need to be sealed. AeroBarrier can seal anything up to 1/2 inch. Outside of that, if you have the spline returns need to be taped. There may be a drain that doesn't have water in the trap yet. All of that stuff does need to be prepped. Outside of that, we will handle a lot of the air sealing that's required outside of, again, the designed openings. After the prep is installed, we will do an initial blower door test just to get an initial assessment of what this structure is leaking. Once we feel comfortable with what that level is, we'll turn on the system. We do positive pressure, so we blow a lot of air into the structure. That makes it leak out of the leaks in the home. The air goes out. At that pressure, we aerosolize our sealant, and at pressure, those sealant particles float. So the air then becomes the method of transport. It carries the sealant particles to those leaks. It's a self-guided sealing system. It's not creating a mess over everything. There's no film on anything. It only seals where there's a leak. So again, because we're using a blower door, every 90 seconds our system gets a blower door reading. So I can tell you in real time as we tighten that envelope what your envelope leakage is. So we can guarantee and we can take the guesswork out of sealing the building envelope in about half a day. So the sealing process itself takes about an hour and a half, give or take. Within half an hour after we are done sealing, it is safe for anybody to go back into that space and continue work. So there's no real, outside of the hour and a half that we're applying the technology, there's no downtime for the building. So your trades can go back in, anybody can go back in and continue work on that space within half an hour of us leaving. After that, the prep is just, or the cleanup is just taking off the tapes, right? So AeroBarrier can be applied from rough in to a completely finished house. It all depends on how you're building the house. With a conditioned attic, we can actually come in at rough in before fiberglass insulation, and we can apply at that stage. If you have a vented attic, the biggest constraint to AeroBarrier is we have to be able to pressurize. So either we have to put the lid in place and then we can seal it rough in, or we go after first coat of drywall mud. But like I said, we can go from rough in to completely finished house as long as we can pressurize that space.
Do you find after first coat of drywall mud, are you eliminating a lot of the time in the process and you don't have to seal as much?
Not necessarily. It depends on the builder, obviously. But what you need to ask yourself is, what's my primary air barrier? Right? Are you using that exterior wall as your primary air barrier, or are you using drywall? Right? There's a bunch of different things that you need to take into consideration when you apply something like this. We can apply at a lot of different stages, so we're flexible in that sense. So what's your air barrier? What does your attic situation look like? And then we can work with you to apply at the best time. So every unit that we seal gets a certificate of completion. So you can see pre-leakage when we started, how long it took us to seal, and what the post-leakage number was, what we achieved. We give this to each builder with every unit that we seal.
Does your verified report, is that ANSI and Resnet standard 3
Well, so let's step back just a little bit. So the process that we're doing, because we tape everything off, it's more of an enclosure test, right? This is not an as-built test as you would do with ResNet or final blower door testing, right? We are not trying to do that. We are doing a full enclosure test. We're taping off the vents and things like that. So when you go to the final blower door, your dampers could be a little bit open. We're going to take all our tape off. So it's a single point blower door test, certified to our blower door is a Minneapolis blower door, certified to all those standards, but we are doing it different. Right? So we give a verified result. So it shows you what we achieved. Every home or apartment that we seal, we give that to the builder as proof of what we achieved. Again, we build some flexibility in there because we know when we take our tapes off, when we take our prep off, we're going to reintroduce some leakage to that space. So we've built that into our system and we've accounted for that. So this gives you an idea, a good before and after. Left is before seal, right is after seal. What I'll point out here is it doesn't impact vertical surfaces. You can walk into a house after we're done sealing and rub the drywall and never knew we were there. It doesn't create a mess over everything. It doesn't create a film over anything. It only seals where that air is moving through the pressurized space, through a leak. The one thing I will point out, if you can see in the back, the sealant doesn't discriminate. It will seal anything under 1/2 inch. The back of that punch out where the wire comes through is sealed, but also the punch out that's not punched out is sealed. So if you don't want something sealed, we do have to take precautions and we do have to cover that. But as you can see, it creates a nice clean caulk-like seal without messing up the drywall or any other surface. So we always get questions, what's the sealant? What are you injecting? Is it healthy, right? So we've worked really, really hard on the sealant that we have with our system. Trimco is our sealant partner. We have done a lot of work with them over the last 2 years to build the sealant that we have. First and foremost, it is no red list items. If you know what that is, there's some very stringent requirements on red list. We have no red list materials in our sealant. It's also Green Guard Gold certified, and what that means is hospitals and schools have a little bit different standard based on the products that they can put in their environment. Those occupants are a little bit more sensitive. We are certified and allowed to use our product in those environments. It's National Green Belt standard, so if you're building for those points, we can help you there. It's ultra low VOC, almost no VOC in our solution, and it has no off-gassing. On top of that, we meet all the ASTM requirements for air sealing, smoke spread, and fire, as you would expect from a product that does air sealing, whether it be a caulk or other solution. So again, we've worked really, really hard on this process, and when you think about our process, the only time you need PPE or personal protective equipment is when you enter the space as it's being aerosolized, right? You don't want to breathe it while it's being aerosolized, but outside of that, there's no concern for occupant health. There's no concern for applier health outside the space, right? So we're really proud of the sealant that we have. We're happy to share any information that you need about the sealant itself. Owens Corning has put it through the rigors with their sustainability and in all the tests that they would do. And they're willing to put their name next to ours based on the sealant that we have, right? So why AeroBarrier, right? The beautiful thing about AeroBarrier is you really don't have to change much of what you're doing to apply our product, right? We're looking for you to build well, right? We don't want to just be a fix-a-flat for your house because you didn't do something well. But we can come into any build process and we can find time without disrupting your build process. Our goal is actually to reduce your cycle time because we can do what we do in about half a day, right? It is guaranteed. Owens Corning can offer guaranteed thermal. AeroBarrier can offer guaranteed air sealing. So together we can build a high performing wall system that is very economical and that performs at a very high level. We are the only, no other product in the marketplace can sell you an air change, right? I can now, you say you want 2 ACH 50, I can sell you that air change and my system can guarantee that number for you, right? That has implications on right sizing your mechanicals, maybe looking at different insulation options. It just opens up the doors to different flexible options to how you build and what you're doing, right? And like I said, we dial it in. We can hit any number you want from 3 ACH 50 to 0.2. We have a production builder that I'll talk about here in a minute that takes it to 0.2 every day. The last one is it's proven because we're using, it's a Minneapolis blower door. It's just like you would use to certify the house at the end of construction. Because we're using that process and because we get a blower door reading every 90 seconds, we can guarantee the results, and it's a proven solution, right? Owens Corning has done their due diligence on the sealant. We're using a certified product as far as our measuring the air leakage. So we can give you a proven solution that dials in whatever performance you're looking for. So Mandalay Homes, one of the first production home builders to adopt AeroBarrier. They do about 225 homes a year. They just completed their 300th install with AeroBarrier. On average, they take their homes to 0.2 ACH50. And the beauty of AeroBarrier for them is they're really looking for zero net energy ready homes, net zero homes. They put battery storage in there. They have a lot of solar requirements. AeroBarrier is actually the foundation for their solar and storage program, because without AeroBarrier, without a tight envelope that's predictable, they were requiring 30 and 40 solar panels to get to net zero. When you can bring your envelope down consistently, and we can guarantee a number that shrinks that variance in your ACH, they're now using 8 to 10 solar panels with their storage package. It becomes more economical. You can do it on a production scale. So AeroBarrier did not do that on its own, just to be clear. But we are the foundation that allows them to build that system that makes solar and storage scalable on a production scale, right? This is another one that we did. This is a passive house apartment project in New York City. All 36 apartments failed. They didn't meet passive house certification. The builder went in 2 apartments and tore out all the drywall, tried to reseal it by hand, put all the drywall back in place, finished it again, tried again, failed again. We came in 8 days and did all 36 units to passive house tightness and finished that project for them. That project is now fully occupied. You can look at it. It's called Perch of Harlem in New York City. So again, we can do fully finished. We can do it at rough end. We are flexible in that sense. We just want to work with you to provide the best solution for the build that you're doing, right? The other thing, if you would like to see some of the homes that we've done here at the show, we did all 3 show homes. So the remodel, the New American Home, the KB Project Kit, all were sealed with AeroBarrier. So if you'd like to see some of our projects here locally while you're at the show, go see one of the show homes, and that'll be a house that we sealed here recently. So any questions? We went through a lot of information. What do you guys got?
How is it priced? What's the expectation of the installs?
Yeah, so we price by the square foot. We have partners across the country, and they would be the ones that would set that pricing expectation with you. But when we look at a project, how leaky is it? How tight do you want to go? And how many do you want to seal, right? So if you're going to go from 22 ACH to 1, it's going to be different than 7 ACH to 1, right? But on average, if it's a moderately leaky house and you want to go to 3 or 1, $1.25, $1.50 a square foot isn't a bad number for budgeting purposes. And that's based on one house. If you're going to give us 400 houses, that price changes dramatically. But we would look to you, and we would push you to our local installers to really hone in that price based on your project. Yes, sir.
What are your biggest challenges with the product thus far, and how are you addressing them?
So the question is, what is our biggest challenge with the product this far? And I wouldn't say we really have any challenges. The biggest constraint we have is we have to be able to pressurize the house, right? So if it's a vented attic or if it's extremely leaky, it creates a little bit of a challenge for us. To be honest, the New American Home started at 14 ACH 50, and we took it to 3 ACH. It was a little bit of a challenge to start because with that volume of space moving that much air, it can create a challenge for us to get enough pressure that our particles will move where we need them to go. So that's really the biggest constraint.
So I'm in a marketplace that already is governed by Austin Energy Green Building for everything that's in the city. And everybody's down to 4 ACH in the minimum anyway.
Sure.
Are you basically saying it's so easy to get to 1 or 2 or 1.5? Once you're at that point, that it's going to have a very big effect on overall cost per square foot? Is it that much easier?
Yeah, and we'd like to work with you. What are things that you necessarily don't have to do? How can we shorten that cycle time? There's a lot of different variables that come into play that we can work with you on to improve the process.
So optimally, what's the best stage that we would want to bring your technology in?
Sure. So the question is, what's the best stage to bring our technology? And that's all based on how you build. If you have a vented attic, we need to come in after at least the lid's in place, right? We can't pressurize with a vented attic solution. If it's a conditioned attic, we can come in at rough end. But again, it depends on what your air barrier is. What's that primary air barrier, right? AeroBarrier is not a primary air barrier. It's an air sealing solution that enhances your air barrier. So what is your primary air barrier today? And then we can work through your construction and understand what the best time to apply. Most economical is going to be at rough end or first coat of drywall mud. Sir.
A couple of questions. Have you done any testing after several years to understand how much the AeroBarrier will be working after 2 or 3 years when you have all the seasonal changes? That's question number one.
Sure.
Question number two, what is the life expectation of the material?
Sure. So I can give you two answers to that. We have a bunch of lab tests that I can share with you. And AeroBarrier is new. We've been in the market commercialized for officially 2 years. So in the lab test side of it, to Cody's point, we've done 50-year wear tests. We've done all kinds of things with the sealant. With that 50-year wear test, they take it up to 140 degrees. They bring it back down naturally. They take it to negative 40 degrees, bring it back up naturally, while putting a little bit of tension on that joint. We started out at 99.9% effective, which you would expect from a new seal. After the complete test, 50-year wear test, we ended up at 99.87% effective. So very little seal degradation. And I'll admit that is in a lab, right? So we have done, I mentioned Mandalay Homes. We sealed their first house roughly 18 months ago, right? So we sealed that house between 0.5 and 0.6 ACH50 when we were done with our work, final blower door test for that house. We just went back about a month ago, about 18 months later, and that tested out at 0.7 ACH50. So that's a bad blower door, right? That's a wind across your blower door. So we're really comfortable and confident with those results. Again, we'll continue to test and we'll continue to move down that path. We're working with what we have today in the marketplace, and that's 18 months is about what we have at this point.